One, we're live. Hello, this is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Miss G, Georgette Truman. Good evening, Miss G. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good. Thank you.
And we have a very special guest tonight. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing okay right now.
Good. Well, you know what? You have a very strong internet connection, which I can't say for a lot of my guests. So I can see you
We
great.
we tend to buy the best internet because me and my fiance are gamers, so we like to have the better internet.
There
So
you go. There you go. So you've probably got better connection than me and Miss G.
well, we do go through Comcast and we buy the best one that they have.
So
They're like
you're
the best company.
a lot of people that come on, their internet connection isn't strong, and then they freeze up, their video freeze up, and then their sound sometimes goes out. But you are coming through crystal clear, both video and audio. So I want to
I'm
thank you for
actually
that.
surprised because we have a snowstorm right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look, Jessica, we're going to start with you in a few minutes, but I think Miss G is raising her hand. Miss G, what's going on?
I can talk after Jessica. So go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, I have people coming in the house. That's all.
Okay, Jessica. So this is a show about CPS. So I assume that you've talked to my producer, Grace, and that you have some type of connection with CPS that you want to share with us. So
A very long one.
you've got the floor. Go ahead.
So to start off with, I probably should say a little backstory. First of all, growing up, my life wasn't exactly good. My parents were very neglectful when it came to house cleaning and mentally, I guess, if that makes sense. The other part that you might need to know is my oldest daughter. I was raped whenever I was got pregnant with her by my cousin, which caused some mentality in her, which kind of goes along with my story, actually. So the other part is I grew up knowing some good people. I can't say their names, but they basically helped raise me when my parents weren't really around much like they should have been. Well, he became my landlord at the time when my first story comes. It comes in like 3 parts because I had 3 cases going on basically about the same time. The first one it lasted about 2 years and just ended last Monday, I think. Um, but it ended in a very bad way. Uh, so we kept telling him about our ceiling falling in, getting ready to fall in because I had a big crack, and it ended up falling in, which is also part of the story. So basically, what happened is I got a phone call one day. I can't remember the exact date, but CPS called my oldest daughter. She is 8 now, but at the time she was 6, 7. She just started I think she was in kindergarten at the time, so she was about 6. She wasn't mentally all there yet. So she was she might have been 6, but she wasn't potty trained yet because of her mentality, and she just wasn't where she needed to be. She didn't understand everything. She was talking, but she just wasn't. You had to talk to her in a certain way to figure out what if she knows what you're talking about, you know. Um, well, I had a call from CPS, and they said that they had to come and talk to her, and I was like, okay, well, may I know why? Um, and she said that they got a phone call of abuse, like physical, like of my boyfriend at the time hitting her, which isn't he isn't her dad. He's the father of the other 3 kids that we have now. but at the time it was just her and her brother that we had. Um, well, I found out later that when the incident actually happened when I was at work, where my oldest daughter was thinking that it was a game to play on the reclining chair. Okay, so my boyfriend would put the reclining up and she'd put down. He told her to stop so she wouldn't get hurt. Um, well, she's a kid, and with her not understanding everything exactly, she thought it was a game and she laughed and she'd put it back down and he'd put back up, and he kept telling her over and over until eventually it hit her. In her mind, he hit her because he put it up. Not necessarily he actually hit her, but it was an accident. It wasn't meant to. Well, he didn't think that it hurt her very well. He didn't think it hurt her as much as it did, I guess. So he didn't think anything about taking her to the hospital or anything like that. Come Monday, she told the nurse at her school that he hit her. That's all she said. They didn't ask any questions about how he hit her or anything like that or what happened. They just assumed from a 6-year-old girl that he hit her. So she called me, and because of her mentality, I told CPS I did not want them to talk to her without a lawyer. Then the next thing I know, my mom came over to help us clean up the house because our ceiling fell in. So we were trying to clean up all the insulation so my kids could play in the toy room at the time that we had. Because everything got really messy because of insulation everywhere, and we had to move everything out of the living room into other rooms so the ceiling could get fixed. So we went. We were waiting on for her on the bus. My mom was at the house helping us clean up, like I said. But we looked at the time, and she still wasn't home from the bus. Had no idea why. So I called the school, and I was like, okay, well, why isn't she home? Come to find out, CPS decided to take her out of school without telling us at all. We found out that she never even made it on the bus. And so, which made me like kind of freak out because I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I figured if they take a kid out of school, they'd at least call us, at least after they take her, but they didn't even call us. And so I called the police, and I was very panicked, and I knew that if I didn't call the police myself, I would probably go ballistic, and I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to cause more of a scene than what would already be a scene. And I brought them there more or less to protect myself, not really to protect anything else. Well, she ends up coming back, and we refused her to go inside our house because one, I was very upset anyways with the fact that they're deciding to take both of my kids. They took my son too on the same allegations as the reasoning for my daughter. We were fighting it for 2 years. We were trying to do services. We decided to move because I was pregnant at the time with my third child. So I wasn't able to do as much cleaning when it came to moving certain things because I was pretty far along. We decided to move to a different county because we were afraid that they would try to pull a stunt to take that baby. So we wanted to move. Plus, we had other reasons too. We also found out that my dad is sleeping with his cousin who moved in with them. It's a very long story about that. They decided to take our 2 children. My mom told them that she would take them to her house, that she would take placement for the children. I didn't really get a say in anything. I was too upset that they were taking both of my kids. We tried to use certain services, but we had trouble getting some of them set up, especially after we moved. We tried to ask CPS several times to help us with them, and nothing ever changed. we had to miss him because I had a job, and some of our services they just wouldn't work with us very well. Like we're in therapy, and they made us do therapy and stuff, and the only therapy that I can do is virtual because they don't have anyone else that could do my therapy, and we can't have the same therapist. So after that, they about almost 2 years they told us that we ended up having my third child in that time. And the following, and that like this is like towards the end of 2021, we found out that they're gonna start like the next year that they would start trying to terminate our rights for our children. They did have the option. We tried to put it to where we give my parents guardianship. That way we could kind of work our way up to get our kids back eventually, but they refused. They would not let us do guardianship at all. We they were lying a lot in court, and we couldn't really prove it. We've only proven it once, and that was when they were trying to say that we were canceling all our appointments, when I had messages of the service themselves actually canceling some of those appointments. With my work schedule and their like being booked up and stuff, it was really hard for us to make the appointments. And well, they basically told us that I ended up getting pregnant again for where I would have a baby in 2022. Which actually she is now about 2-3 weeks old now. But at the time I was pregnant, and my other child she was about 1 years old at that time. She's like 1 or getting ready to turn 1 or whatever when we found out that they would be trying to take our rights away. We decided that if like the last option that our lawyers gave us, which was a court-appointed lawyers, they were terrible. They didn't stand up for us at all. They didn't even try to do anything. We had proof that we did not have any abuse. We had a witness that they wouldn't call on. We had my daughter go to the doctors and got proof that, like, she told the doctor what happened, like what really happened. So we had proof from the doctor stating that she got hit by a chair. It was an accident. It wasn't any physical abuse. That did get dropped in the CPS case in the very beginning. But then because they saw our house, and after all that insulation, and our house was dirty, and I did have a hard time trying to keep a house clean. I did have at the time 2 younger. I had my boyfriend living with me, and then his friend, who is young, was living with us at the time. He just moved out the same day that the kids got taken, because we just couldn't handle. I couldn't handle cleaning up after everybody, and so we decided to do that. But I did have a hard time keeping my house clean. I will admit that. So they changed the charges from physical abuse to neglect because of a house being dirty. So we're trying to fight that. We're getting better at trying to keep our house clean and everything like that. We're just having trouble, and I didn't know how to clean a house very well because of my past. My mom didn't do any house cleaning hardly at all. And I know that's not an excuse. I should have learned, and it's a really hard habit to try to break out of when you didn't have that motherly figure, really. But so we went and we decided to go ahead and sign the adoption papers because we basically were threatened that if we didn't, they would terminate our rights for any children we have. So they terminate all 4 of our children, and we would not be able to have any more kids. And or we could choose to adopt the 2 older kids and save our 2 younger kids. And we didn't want to take the risk of losing all of our kids, so we did end up signing the adoption papers for the 2 older ones. Not willingly, obviously. We tried to get them to adjust the thing. We are able to see our kids, but they put in there so limited things. We'd have to have once a month monthly visitation, and that's all they offered us on the adoption papers. Because they actually told us if we did the termination, we wouldn't be able to see our kids at all. And we didn't want to do that. My oldest, Samir, pretty close, so I didn't want to do that to her. So we did what we thought was best. While that case was still going on, we my second youngest child, my third, she is 2 now, but she had trouble gaining weight. She always has since she was pretty much born. We tried everything we can think of. Doctors kept trying to change her diet. She's the only one that was ever a failure to thrive. We tried everything. We talked to doctors. I actually brought it up to the doctors like, hey, she doesn't seem like she's growing very big. She's, when I first brought up, she was probably about 5 months, but she looked like she was still like 2 months. And because her length wasn't really growing, her weight wasn't really growing. And so they kept trying to change her diet. She was spitting up a lot. And so we just think that she wasn't intaking as much. Well, it was a long time. We had to miss a few appointments because of just simply work. I kept having to change jobs for different reasons. Mainly because they cut my hours really low and I couldn't really afford to work at a place where I'm only getting paid 2 days a week. So like sometimes it would be that, it would be just money issues that we just needed better paying jobs. So I kept having to get different jobs off and on, which did create a conflict with just making certain appointments, which I was getting better at the end because I was decided that we needed to focus. We already knew we were losing the 2 older ones, so I needed to focus on the younger one at the time. So we decided to try to focus on her, make sure we were making all of our appointments as much as we could with her. We went to an appointment and the doctor told us that she had gained a decent amount. It wasn't good, but it wasn't the worst. And then that was on a Friday. And then on Monday, we had CPS coming to our door. Our house was not dirty, but it wasn't spotless either. It was kind of like more cluttered than anything else. But they ended up taking her that day for failure to thrive. We found out later, I decided that I wasn't going to just let our lawyers do all the work. I wanted to get proof that we were trying everything that we could to get her to gain weight. So we went and got her doctor records and found out that she had hypotonia, and we had no idea she had it. The doctors never told us. I don't know if they just didn't realize that we didn't understand that they were talking about a completely different diagnosis, or whatever, because they kept talking about her milestones that she kept missing. I looked it up as soon as I got her papers and found out it's a muscle problem. So her muscles aren't as strong, which we found out later at another court hearing that it could be from malnutrition too, but she could have also had it since birth. But she's always had a muscle spasm type thing where her muscles just weren't as strong. She refused to put any weight on her legs for most of her time. We had witnesses because we were doing visitation at this time with our other two kids when she got taken. We had her in First Steps for a little bit, but the person that was doing it went on maternity leave. And so we were waiting for her to come back before they could do it. They were going to give us a replacement, but they just didn't have anyone. So they, we got proof that she had a diagnosis we didn't know about. They got us lawyers at our first thing. Which these lawyers are actually a lot better than the ones that we had before. They're actually ones that we think that we're going to go far with these lawyers this time. We were kind of a little annoyed because we were trying everything that we could and nothing was helping. And we think that when the doctor kept telling us to switch her diet, she would refuse to eat certain things for us. And we explained that to them, that we tried to get her to eat vegetables and she just would refuse. The visitation person have witnessed her refusing food, like plain out, like turning her head, shutting her mouth, and turning her head and not even letting us put it in her mouth at all. And I was not going to force my child's mouth open and force food down her throat. I wasn't going to be that kind of mom. If we gave her something that had like a sauce, like a spaghetti, or it could be spaghetti, it could be macaroni, it could be anything that has some sort of sauce. Mashed potatoes, if it had the gravy, she would eat for us. But she was very, very picky about her food. Well, I decided that I wasn't going to wait around for CPS to start services. So we got a whole bunch of services out, trying to get the best services we could for her to come home. And since I was pregnant with our fourth child, I wanted to make sure that there would be nothing that would get her taken. When we went to court, we got our lawyers the first court. The second court, we went to the judge was kind of mad at the first court until she realized that we didn't know everything and about what was wrong with our daughter, because I mentioned to the judge that we found out she had a diagnosis that the doctor never told us. And so she kind of lightened up a little bit. But the second one, when we were talking to her, she kept questioning CPS a lot about, I guess there's a lot of failure to thrive cases going on in this county right now. So she brought up, like, what's going on? Why are there so many cases? Like, is there services out there for people who could learn how much to feed a child and what kind of feeding to get, like what kind of how much they should be eating, what kind of food you should be giving them, stuff like that. She was asking about that, and I was listening to her, and I was like, if I can make her happy, maybe we can get our kids, because CPS obviously had some sort of grudge against us. We felt that the very first day that that they even came into our lives again in this county. that they just had some sort of vendetta against us. We could just feel it. So I went home that day and I started researching. I already knew about who you were because of the other case. I looked into you and I was trying my best to listen to what you were saying. It just didn't seem to work when you didn't have people to do. When I talked to my lawyer, he also gave me an idea of getting the CASA to be on our side by like letting her come see the house, see it being clean, see, us trying really hard, giving her information about the services we're putting in. I found the service that the judge was looking for at WIC. So I got a whole bunch of services set up that we are actually currently doing right now. I was afraid. I was getting really close to my due date, and I was really afraid that they would take this new baby away from us because of this case. So I kept telling them, and which really made CPS really mad, that I wasn't going to reveal my due date to anybody, which was really hard because I was keeping it from my family. I was keeping it from everybody. The only person that knew is me, my mother-in-law, and my boyfriend, who we got his mother to move in with us because of this case in order to try to help us try to get her back, because we thought that if we had someone else here that could witness and be there for us to support us and stuff, we can get her back a little bit faster than our other kids. We just didn't want to take a chance after losing our other kids that, we would lose this one. Well, when I got to the point where I gave birth to my daughter, things were kind of fishy on the very first day that I was at the hospital. This is the third case that got open, but we just didn't know it. We think we got set up at the hospital, and we don't have any physical proof, I guess, but everything just seems so weird. When we went to the hospital, I specifically told one of the nurses, like, hey, I heard that there's like 3 or 4 other people giving birth on that day. And I was afraid that if I gave birth to my baby, that, they could get switched if they left the room, and, mistakes happen, and I've read stories on that. So I asked them, like, can we try to make sure my daughter never leaves this room at all? I don't want her to leave the room because with how many people are having babies, I didn't want to take a chance of her getting mixed up. And she informed me that they don't do that. They don't really take the babies out of the room except for the one time for the shot. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I ended up having a beautiful girl. She's really great. She's quiet. She had a little bit of jaundice, which I kind of had a suspicion while I was at the hospital. But I just didn't know because it's hard to tell when they're first born, because they always have that little like different coloring because of being born. But then the day that she was born, a nurse came in and informed me that CPS called the hospital. They had no idea we were even at the hospital. Like, there's no way of them really knowing. My mom knew because she was there with me at the hospital. We did tell her last minute that, that way she could be there. Because we weren't sure if my boyfriend, or my fiance now, would be able to make it because he had to work and because of other things that he had to do. He had other appointments that he had to make. So I wanted to make sure that, my mom could be there at least. I don't want to be alone. But we had a problem we had a little bit of hair lice, a little bit. We were trying to take care of it at the time, but we weren't sure if they were gone yet. We were still treating our hair. Well, CPS apparently called the hospital to let them know that they said we were infested with lice, which wasn't true. We had lice, but it wasn't that bad. We were treating it. We were trying to do that. Me being pregnant, me just giving birth to my baby just a few hours ago, decided that I wasn't going to deal with CPS. I called my boyfriend who had went home to go and make sure he could eat and shower and stuff. I called him and told him to bring the razor, and we shaved our heads at the hospital in front of them, and the hospital gave us a treatment, and we treated our heads. We officially got rid of any lice. We made sure we had the nurse checked and everything. Because I just didn't want that to be a reason that they take my child. While we took pictures of us having the shampoo in our hair, because we wanted proof that if they said, well, did you treat it? Well, we had picture proof at that point. Because we realized that if you don't have proof to CPS, they don't care. They don't care if you say something. They're not going to believe you. They're going to try to do anything. They're going to twist your words around. They're going to do whatever they want. So we went there. While he had just rinsed out his hair at the with the shampoo and cleaned it, when CPS walks in. And we're confused, okay? At the hospital the whole time that she's been born, she cried. I picked her up. I tried to feed her every time she was hungry, that she slapped her lips. I gave her a bath on my own accord. I actually asked the doctor, like, hey, do you guys give her baths here? Because I've had babies at different hospitals. None of my kids have the same hospital at all. Different reasonings, but none of them, and all the hospitals were different. They all had different rules. I know that doctors don't recommend washing the baby or giving her a sponge bath so long after they're born, because that the baby, I guess saliva or whatever you want to call it, is good for their skin for the first few hours. So I knew that, every hospital tells you to wait. So I asked someone, which I had to ask, I think it was a maintenance person or something like that came in there, or it was like the Reed Hospital person from it was like one of the nurses from another vicinity. They're like a residency type thing. Anyways, I asked them, and they're like, oh, I think after when they know that you have multiple kids, they have the parents just go ahead and give them a bath when, I was like, okay, I just didn't know. Well, I went and I asked them like where all this stuff was to give her a bath. And so he told me where that would be, and I noticed they had cot balls. So I was like, okay, well, I want to make sure that they don't have a special way of giving her a sponge bath here at the hospital for the first time that she gets her sponge bath. So I called down to the nurse's station. I was like, hey, can you have one of the nurses come up? I waited about 30 minutes while I started gathering everything up. I got water in the bowl, everything. I made it sure it was like room temperature type water, enough that it's not too cold, not too hot for the baby. No one came. So I decided, I was like, well, I'm not going to wait forever. I knew there had other people in the hospital that were giving birth. So I decided I was just going to go ahead and do how I would at home. I gave her a bath. I treated her. I fed her every 2 to 3 hours, like I was told. Sometimes she wouldn't eat right away. I think it's because she had jaundice and I just didn't realize, whatever. Until I did ask the doctor, hey, I can't get her to latch on or anything because I'm breastfeeding. And the doctor said, well, try taking her clothes off and getting her a little bit cold and seeing if that would work. And I started doing that, and it actually did work. So I started feeding her a little bit. She wouldn't latch on one side, but she would the other, which I did mention to the nurses several times. I asked at least 3 to 4 times for a lactation consultant to help me get her to latch on the other side. Never once seen one. They kept saying, okay, we'll get her one. We'll get you one. We'll get you one. And nope, never saw one the entire visit. The last day that I asked for it, they said, oh, well, she's not in today. The doctors. But anyways, when CPS came in, they told us that they had to go and look at our house to see if it was clean enough for the baby before they would allow the hospital to give us the baby to take home. However, so we had to stay another day, which was freaking me out because I'm like, okay, apparently they got a call from from somewhere. They wouldn't tell us who, but we had a suspicion it was from someone at the hospital because, like I said, we never told anyone that we were even going to be at the hospital that day. We were so quiet about. We didn't tell anyone the due date. We didn't tell them about the induction. We didn't tell anyone, except a very limited people. Like I could count on my hand how many people actually knew. So it was just really weird that CPS just automatically knew on the very first day that she was born that we were even there. There's this one girl. I'm not going to say her name because I'm not supposed to, but she was one of the last nurses that we had. And there, she kept telling us that, no one at the hospital called CPS. No one at the hospital called. No one at the hospital. She was really, really enforcing that subject. Every time she kept trying to console me and try to be nice to me, and said that, hey, no one called from the hospital. No one called. Okay, that was her story, and that's what she was sticking to. Say, okay, well, I wasn't worried about that. Whatever. Well, CPS went to the house. It passed, but they didn't tell me anything. They didn't. I kept trying to call, trying to get everything figured out. I called the CASA. At that time, we were on good terms with the CASA. By that time, and we called the CASA, and it's like, hey, would you mind going to my house? This is the day after. This is the second day. This is when she was going to be about 2 days old at like 3:00. She'd be 2 days old. And this is the day that they said that they would give us an answer by. Well, I was like, hey, do you mind going to the house and checking the house and taking pictures? That way we have another person that checked our house and cleared it for the baby to come home. And she's like, yeah, no problem. So she went as soon as she could, before my boyfriend had to go to work, and to go check out the house. And she said that, yes, the house is kind of like running down. Like there's we have some problems. We had water damage in our in the trailer that we live in, and so we need new flooring. But that's nothing that we could fix. We had to get a hold of our landlord and get them to fix it. But she said, other than that, she said, like, she has no problem with the way our house looks. She is completely happy with it. She said it is good for a baby to come home in. Say, okay, good. We wanted her to know because that way we didn't. She also said that she would try to figure out what's going on. I called my lawyer. I asked them to have him call me as soon as he could, and I asked him. He also decided to go ahead and try to get a hold of CPS and see what was taking so long because they wouldn't answer us. It was all day. I was freaking out. I did not know what was going on. About 6, 7 o'clock at night, they told us that they were going to remove the baby. She was 2 days old. We had no idea why. We didn't do nothing wrong. They said that the reasoning behind it was because they couldn't guarantee we could be parents. That's what they told us. When they came to the hospital, I asked them, like, well, do you have a warrant to take the baby? They said, no, but we have a court order to take the baby. We didn't know if that was legal or not because I'm not a lawyer. He's not a lawyer. We don't know. But they said that they didn't have a warrant, but they did have a court a paper signed by the judge to take the baby. There's police officers there. We didn't want to cause a scene, really. I was in the process of breastfeeding my baby because I was trying to give her as much milk from, that I could at the time. And so I was trying to give her as much milk, which she wanted me to sign papers. I told her I didn't really feel comfortable signing papers. She's like, well, this is just to make sure you understand what was going on. I look at my boyfriend and he's like, well, let's go ahead. Let's just whatever. I asked the nurse for water while they're talking, because they're trying to read us the paper that they're why they're taking her and all that stuff. Well, she goes, I'm over here on the way over here on this side of the bed. and the table's over here. She puts it on the table. I'm feeding the baby, so I couldn't reach very well. This is where it gave us suspicions that she had something to do with this, or someone at the hospital had something to do with it. But anyways, I went to reach for the water and I knocked it over on some of the court papers. I kind of thought it was a little bit funny, but I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. I couldn't reach the water. I don't know why she just didn't hand it to me when she knew I was kind of feeding the baby. Well, she blabs out to the CPS person. She's like, "You did that on purpose." Then that's when I realized, like, that really does look like I did it on purpose. And I started apologizing because I really didn't mean to. I mean, I thought it was funny because I thought karma was just trying to be a payback. But so they ended up doing all the paperwork. CPS told me that I had to stop feeding the baby and they were going to take a right then and there. And I was like, so you're telling me that you're worried that I can't feed my baby, but you're going to take her away from me while I'm feeding the baby? And I said, you're telling me you're refusing for me to finish feeding this baby? And she's like, yes. So they ended up stopping and taking the baby. We put her in the car seat and they went on with their way. Come to find out, when I talked to my lawyer, he ended up calling his lawyer and telling him, the lawyer that we had for my third child, and telling him what happened, which he got so mad about the whole situation because he's like, what reason did they have to take a baby that was only 2 days old? Like, they didn't have a reason to take this baby, which, we found out they actually had no reason. But anyways, he told my boyfriend that, tell your judge when you go to court the next day, because we had court the next day. He's like, tell her that he will be willing to to take up this case. He wanted to take this case up because he was so passionate about this case. So we ended up going to court the next day and telling that I decided to request her to be returned to me. And I tried to make sure I was as calm as could be, which was so hard because when you're a mom and you're just had a baby and you just got out of the hospital, it's so hard to control your emotions. I had postpartum because of the way they took her. And it was so bad. But I was trying to control my emotions, and I watched a lot of your videos trying to figure out how I was going to approach the court because I didn't believe they had any reasoning. So I went there and I waited to the end because I knew this judge did not like being interrupted whatsoever. She made that very clear on the last case that we had with the other case that we had with her. So I waited and I raised my hand as appropriately as I could. And she's like, yeah, so you may speak. I had a whole bunch of proof. I went out earlier that day to get doctor notes from the hospital, to get anything I could. I had, while I was in the hospital, I had been, I made sure I got the copy of us keeping track of her diapers and the track of us keeping track of her feedings. I had copies of all that we did at the hospital. I made sure I got as much proof that we were taking care of this baby as I could before I went to the first court hearing, because I realized that if you don't do it yourself, sometimes your lawyers won't do it for you. You have to get your own proof. And so I did that. And I told her, I was like, Your Honor, we believe we would like to request that she get returned to us. Because we believe that it is in the best interest of the child to be returned to us. We also have, and I told her I have proof of all the services we're in right now. We have all the proof of, we were just naming a whole bunch of stuff that I had. And she was listening in, and she was very, very interested in what I had to say. We almost did get her back that day, but we didn't. just yet because of there was still suspicion because we did have 2 other cases open at the time that they were kind of concerned. So they were kind of talking about it. She asked CPS. CPS definitely said no. We don't think that it's a good idea. The CASA said that she thinks it would be a good idea, but she's still concerned about us doing our services and stuff like that because we did have an issue in the past. So she was kind of on edge. She was kind of like where the judge was at the time. So she decided like at this time she would not be put back in place. Then the last court we had a fact finding for our one daughter. We were going to have the pretrial and the and I guess a motion to vacate is what our lawyers put in for this new baby, which is still kind of ongoing at the moment. But well, we did the fact finding, which was a lot of back and forth. Honestly, it was very hard to tell if we won or not. We still haven't gotten our answer back from that yet. We're still waiting on that. That will be in January. Hopefully, we can get our daughter back, our other kid, one of our other children back at that time. But right now, that's not in the cards yet. At this other court hearing, they had to reschedule our court hearing for our youngest because we just ran out of time. It took literally half the day. The court was closed by the time we were done with that fact finding. I did get my own witnesses up there because I had a witness about one was the parenting person, one was the visitation person. The visitation person could confirm that we did indeed feed our third child, but she would refuse food too, that she witnessed that. And the other one would, every time she came, we were feeding this child. So that was that court. This last one that we just did was the first real trial with our lawyers for the baby. And it was a really back and forth too, because it was the motion to vacate. There was a lot of back and forth between my boyfriend's lawyer and the judge. My lawyer and his lawyer are kind of like, they agree on some things, but they don't always agree on everything, which my lawyer even said that that's okay. He thought that our third child had a bigger case than what he did, and hopefully we could win, but we're not sure about that yet. But we did get our youngest daughter back. It was very back and forth. We are on very tight reins. Really, really tight. Like, we can't have a rash on her. We can't have her. We have to keep logs on everything. If we miss the logs, if we miss a doctor appointment, if we miss any of our appointments, the judge even said that she gets taken instantly. That's where we're at right now. I know that's a lot to take in. We found out, though, when I talked to my lawyer about this baby on this case, this nurse made up conversations to CPS. We found out who that person that was telling us in the hospital that they didn't call the hospital, that they didn't call CPS. She was the one that called CPS. So the person who kept trying to assure me that they didn't do nothing was the person that caused this whole thing. We have a suspicion. It's not confirmed. We don't have any proof. We think that CPS convinced this nurse to make a false report at the hospital. We think that because everything that she put in that CPS report wasn't even true. The only thing that she had in this entire report that our lawyer read to us of what she reported was the fact that we shaved our head. That was it. That was the only truthful thing that she even said in her thing. She tried to say that I asked them to take my daughter to a nursery in the hospital so I didn't have to deal with her and so I can sleep. Never came out of my mouth. Never even a conversation we had. They were trying to say that we refuse lactation services. She said that every time it was feeding time, they had to tell me to feed the baby. They were hardly in there. Like, they were only, the most time that they were in that room was to give me water because I was so dehydrated the whole time. But they were hardly in there. Like there's times when I'd call to have them come in there for something for the baby and me, and I'd wait an hour before I even get an answer. There's so much in this report that she did that none of it was true. They're like, it was almost like my 2-year-old was making up this long story, this fish story, and just stretching it out to be the story. So we think that we think that we were set up in the hospital, to be truthful. And we're one to take the hospital to court as well, because I don't want money. Okay. I don't want money for all the stuff that we've been through. Like, that's not what I want. I just want them to stop taking kids from people who aren't doing anything wrong, just because of their perception of people. Like, I think that they took one look at us and thought that we weren't good to our kids, and that's all they saw. And I just want to protect other people from having to go through the same heartache that we have to go through.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that story with us. I really appreciate it. When's your next court hearing?
My next court hearing is, I think January 14th, I think. Yeah.
And what type of hearing is it?
When we go there, they will, if we do everything right with our youngest, because we got her back now, she's actually next to me, then we might be able to get my other daughter, I almost said her name, sorry. We might be able to get her back, but it will be, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it will be basically what she decides on my third child on the fact finding. After the fact finding, it's the one that she'll give us the answer about that child on that fact finding hearing. And then it's also going to be a new pre-trial, because our lawyers decided to have another pre-trial for the youngest.
And what state are you in?
Indiana.
Okay. Well, listen, I wish you luck on your future hearings. If you ever want to call me and chit chat about some of the things I do strategy wise, look at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You see that 888 number.
Mm-hmm.
So write down that 888 number, and I'd love to talk to you. Love to see if I can give you or your lawyer any information that I might have that might be able to help you. Now, I will tell you this. In California, if you have one child with you, that goes a long way into getting your other children back. So that's a plus for you, a big plus.
See, our biggest thing that we wanted to ask you is, I didn't give up on my other two children. Yes, they got adopted and the adoption was finalized, but I still haven't given up on getting them back, which I know a lot of people are telling me it's almost impossible to reverse an adoption. But I know that it's possible, and I'm just trying to figure out how to go about that. We also, we don't want to do anything that can hurt the cases that we have right now, so we're not doing anything right now, because anything we say can and will be used against us, and we've learned that. So we don't want to do anything yet, but we do plan on trying to take the hospital to court for their false accusations, because they're the false reporting in general. But we're also thinking of filing a big complaint with CPS too, because of them stalking us and like taking the baby away without having a reasoning. Like, they didn't have a reasoning. They couldn't answer us what we did wrong. Like,
Right.
when we asked them over and over at the hospital when they're taking her, like, I was like, I want to ask you a question, and I want you guys to be honest with me. What did we do for you to want to take this baby away? And they couldn't answer us. They wouldn't
You know,
answer us. They
you know
said that
one
it was in the paper, and that was it.
one of the things that I've advised or recommended to people, the Department of Health and Human Services has uh, complete oversight of CPS in every state, and you should go to their website. And there is a way to start an investigation on your case if if you think there is some wrongdoing. The other thing that you can do is you can go to the U.S. Department of Justice website for your district, and you can also file a civil rights violation complaint. And both of those may be investigated by both entities. So that's something that, to remember, and for everyone to remember, that there is federal oversight. Hey, Jessica, we've passed our time. I want to
I'm
thank
so
you again.
sorry. I know my story is so long.
I want to thank you again for being a guest. Good luck to you in the future, and I look forward to talking to you. So please give me a call, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty, folks, that's the end of the show tonight. Our show tomorrow night is going to be at 7 p.m. And don't forget, our weekend shows are Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. Also, this Sunday is Christmas. Christmas this Saturday, and I'm trying to plan with my producer a very special Christmas show. It might go longer than the usual 45 minutes, but I'm hoping to have some very special guests on with us for a very special Christmas show for all of those parents and relatives who are fighting CPS. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, all.